Velkrin Prime did not sparkle. It glistened like a knife's edge just pulled from ice water. The capital city of the Velkrin Imperium was less of a metropolis and more of a structural compromise with gravity. Towering spires of blackened coral jutted from the depths like frozen thunderclaps, each one layered with translucent alloy plates that shimmered in muted blue hues. Nothing was dry. Even the air inside was damp, a thick, mineral-tinged humidity that clung to everything and everyone like polite surveillance. Hydraulic doors sighed open and closed with militaristic rhythm. Drones hovered with the precision of over-caffeinated librarians. Ceilings pulsed with a cold, bioluminescent light, perfectly timed to suppress melatonin and individuality. This was not a place where joy happened. It was where protocols happened. The Velkrin themselves were an amphibious hive mind species, 8-limbed, cephalopodic beings with translucent cranial sacs and shifting chromatophores that pulsed in strict patterns of rank and directive. Communication was executed through a rapid sequence of throat clicks and synchronized light flashes along their appendages, which, to the untrained eye, resembled a very stressful rave. Their translators, however, had recently been updated to accommodate lesser species, such as mammals, warmbloods, and those who sweat. The result was a voice interface that spoke in an unsettling monotone, like a GPS with abandonment issues. The Velkrin did not understand emotion. Not in the way a sponge might not understand jazz, but in the way a spreadsheet does not understand forgiveness. Their culture had evolved entirely around logic, order, and the unrelenting pursuit of maximum procedural efficiency. Their dictionary contained no words for love, art, or whoops. Instead, everything was quantified in EDUs, efficiency deviation units. Crying, for example, ranked as a class 4 contaminant response, slightly worse than sarcasm, and just below jazz. But change, like mold, finds its way into even the most sterile environments. Deep within a black-rimmed research facility known only as the Silence Trench, Velkrin strategists had convened to unveil what they believed to be the future of psychological warfare, the E.M.P.A.T.H protocol, short for Emotional Manipulation Pulse for Alien Tactical Hegemony. They didn't fully understand what it did, only that it caused squishy species to falter, question orders, and perform ritual-based mating behaviors, which, from a Velkrin standpoint, was basically civilizational collapse. In their view, emotion was a virus, and the best way to weaponize a virus was to find someone who already had it. Enter Ava Morales. 27 years old, half Mexican, half exhausted, recently fired from her job at a vegan burrito startup for emotional disengagement. Her hobbies included naps, sarcasm, and sending her entire rom-com movie playlist into the galactic archive by accident during a Wi-Fi router misfire. That playlist, titled Emergency Sad Vibes, Volume 1 had triggered 57 red alerts across Velkrin defense arrays. They'd reviewed the footage. They had wept. They did not know why. Interpreting this digital transmission as an advanced form of psychological subterfuge, Velkrin Command reached out. Formally, they offered her a role aboard the ISS Rationality Absolute as a weapon integration liaison. Ava, half listening and out of snacks, assumed it was a paid internship. Housing included. She packed light. A hoodie, a tablet, a Bluetooth speaker, and exactly zero respect for aquatic protocol. By the time she arrived, Velkrin Prime was already preparing to unleash the first emotional assault in its history, and Ava Morales, unbothered, unfazed, and slightly hungry, had no idea she was about to start a war with feelings. The first thing Ava noticed about the Velkrin facility was that everything appeared to be damply alive. The corridors throbbed. Literally. Smooth, organic walls made from bioengineered coral shifted faintly as she walked past, like they were breathing in sync with her mood, which was somewhere between mildly curious and regretting not packing snacks. The lights blinked in rhythmic pulses. Not bulbs, eyes. Flanking her were two Velkrin guards who looked like stern octopi in wetsuits, except the wetsuits were their skin. They clacked as they moved, uttering sharp bursts of clicks and glows that translated through her earpiece as, "Specimen escorted. Do not ingest specimen. Noted." She gazed around the hallway curved, wet, and vaguely judgmental, and muttered under her breath, "Very IKEA meets fish tank." They led her to what she assumed was some kind of war room, glowing walls, floating screens, and a large central pod surrounded by dozens of Velkrin scientists in color-coded sashes. Each wore the unmistakable expression of someone who had never had a feeling, but had read about them in a government report. The lead researcher extended a glistening tentacle and gestured toward a raised dais. "Begin emotional weapon demonstration." Ava blinked. "You want me to? What?" "Cry on cue." The translator buzzed again. "Display your most destabilizing audio-visual payload." "Oh, you want to watch a movie?" She shrugged, pulled out her tablet, and synced it to the central screen. "Let's start easy. The Notebook. Gets me every time." The room dimmed. Velkrin clicked softly as the film began. As the music swelled and characters fell in love over old letters and rain-drenched kisses, something unsettling happened. One of the guards, Unit 77B, began blinking out of sync. Rapidly. Another turned to look at it, head tilted. At minute 42, a technician let out a strange squeak and started leaking fluid from its eye vents. Velkrin do not cry. Their ducts are designed exclusively for salinity regulation. The tears were unplanned. "A contamination event is occurring," shouted one. But before they could isolate the infection, the ending played. And in the stillness that followed, amid sniffles and confused silence, Ava clapped once. "That's the good stuff," she said. "Classic emotional overload. Love, memory, death. Rain, you guys are gonna win so many wars." The Velkrin were silent. Then, the lead researcher clicked a new directive. "Further exposure required. Weapon appears to induce internal collapse." They gave her an official title, Emotional Deployment Officer, Tier 3. Ava, encouraged, opened her emergency feels folder. First, a breakup playlist. Acoustic guitar, breathy vocals, lines like "You were my lighthouse and now I'm drowning." Velkrin engineers began staring out of windows, which previously served no architectural purpose. Next, a puppy video, a human child giggling as a Labrador clumsily chased its tail. A junior commander made a noise that might have been a chuckle, then asked to be alone. Then a sad podcast, an hour of whispered confessions about lost love, parental expectations, and the healing power of therapy. Two Velkrin openly left mid-transmission to process their identity schemas. Ava, now fully installed in the tech bay, had rigged a hammock between two conduits and was sipping Velkrin nutrient jelly through a straw. "You guys got any popcorn?" she asked. Instead of an answer, a report was filed with high command. Notable drop in hierarchical assertion, 17%. Increased incidence of sighing. Subordinates using phrases such as "you don't get me" and "it's not just about the mission anymore." In one case, a surveillance drone had painted a mural of its dead battery. Ava responded to growing concerns by offering hugs, which were initially cataloged as soft containment holds. She gave one to a communications officer after he said he felt uncertain about his role in the collective. The officer blinked twice. Warm pressure input, confusing, but not unpleasant. Within days, Velkrin officers began requesting hugs preemptively. Ava obliged. As more of the facility turned quiet and inward, reflections surfaced. Orders were questioned. Lights dimmed for mood reasons. One Velkrin began composing poetry. In binary. The Velkrin had called her a weapon. She was beginning to wonder if they weren't. Right. By the time 3 junior officers started a book club called Heart Stuff and Other Feelings, Velkrin High Command had had enough. The Grand Marshal, a towering elder Velkrin whose chromatophores hadn't shifted color in over 2 centuries, summoned Ava for formal interrogation. The room was cold, not for intimidation, just default climate control. One wall pulsed with a slow crimson rhythm, a sign of elevated tension or bad shellfish. Ava sat on a suspended water disk that doubled as a chair. She munched Velkrin nutrient wafers like they were pretzels. The Grand Marshal blinked. Is the hug an aggressive maneuver? Ava snorted. Only if you're really bad at it. And the chocolate? What about it? Its tactical function. The subjects consumed it, then wept, then embraced one another. Some whispered, "I'm glad you're here." Ava nodded. Yeah, that's pretty standard. The Grand Marshal blinked in what could only be described as silent horror. They now refer to superiors as bros. Is this a chain of command reset protocol? She shrugged. More of a vibe, honestly. The military mind of Velkrin society was unraveling, and not subtly. A faction had broken off. Traditionalists, calling themselves the Steel Mind Collective, labeled emotion as neural corrosion, and Ava as a Class 9 biohazard. She is a manipulator, hissed Commander Thrizik, leader of the Resistance, a rogue empath deploying romance-based mind control to destabilize the core. His words echoed down the barracks halls, where some soldiers now burned candles, played acoustic guitar, and asked each other, "But how do you feel about the mission?" Thrizik's followers refused all exposure. They banned rom-coms, smashed their Bluetooth speakers, wore dark goggles to avoid bioluminescent poetry. Ava responded by scheduling a mandatory movie night. Attendance was compulsory. The film, up. At first, the Resistance sat stoically, cross-armed, eyes dry. Then came the opening montage, the love story, the time-lapse, the music. At minute 10, Thrizik began leaking from his left duct. By minute 12, he had curled into a communal pillow pod and whispered, "Why didn't he take the trip sooner?" Ava leaned against the wall, arms folded. Feelings hit harder than torpedoes. By week's end, Velkrin Command had taken collective sick leave, citing unprocessed internal stimuli and the need for personal discovery. Field marshals were seen stargazing. Fleet engineers stopped running experiments and started journaling. One particularly esteemed physicist wrote an entire memoir titled From Code to Connection, My Journey Through Ava. It was mostly adjectives. The once precise military cadence of the Velkrin collapsed into soft jazz and open mic nights. Tactical briefings were replaced with sharing circles. Strategic diagrams were redrawn with little hearts. The E.M.P.A.T.H. protocol hadn't destabilized the enemy. It had melted the Velkrin from the inside out. Ava Morales had introduced something more potent than fear. She had introduced melodrama. And for the Velkrin, the war was no longer against hostile empires. It was against themselves. Velkrin Prime split like a cold current through coral. On one side, the unfeeling core, traditionalists in chrome armor, demanding Ava's immediate deportation, dissection, or both. They issued statements like, "Emotions are a virus. Romance is a mind fracture. She gave my subordinate a hug and now he paints sunsets." On the other side, the new emotional order, a coalition of once stoic officers now wearing scarves, debating metaphor and using phrases like the tyranny of repression. Their flagship warship had been renamed the SS Vulnerability. In the middle, Ava Morales, hoodie up, feet on the table, eating dried mango slices she brought from Earth. She had no idea where the mangoes came from. They just kind of floated into her quarters one day. Probably a gift, or a peace offering, or a declaration of war. She stopped asking, but now she was standing trial, charged with emotional sabotage, tactical deromanticization of command hierarchy, unauthorized transmission of Taylor Swift lyrics. The courtroom was a ring of translucent jelly seats arranged around a glowing memory pool. Above her, Velkrin elders loomed in elevated pods, ancient, unmoving, like armored squid statues. The prosecutor, a rigid bureaucrat with no known first name, slammed a tendril on the podium. The accused has introduced volatile chemical bonding rituals. Officers now prioritize connection over combat. She must be terminated. Ava raised her hand. Can I get a definition on terminated? Like, are we talking paperwork or acid tank? The room shimmered with discomfort. The sentence was revealed. She would be dropped into a containment chamber called the Tank of Social Indifference, a silent cube where no one would talk, look, or emotionally validate her existence. Ava blinked. So, jury duty? The elders began their decree. Lights dimmed. The chamber resonated with the solemn hum of decision-making. And that's when it happened. From the gallery, a voice broke protocol. It was young Officer 77B, the same Velkrin who'd first cried during the notebook. He stood, body flickering in erratic shades of blue. I like her. Gasps echoed like sonar bursts. The courtroom stilled. A few bioluminescent sashes flickered pink in what might have been embarrassment or confusion. Commander Thrizik dropped his data pad. You, imbecile. You spoke in first-person subjective. 77B stepped forward. I don't want her dissected. I don't want this feeling gone. She made me feel seen. Like, I'm more than just protocol and marine efficiency quotas. The silence cracked. Another voice joined. She taught me it's okay to miss someone. She told me crying is just leaking feelings you don't know how to store yet. She said sarcasm is the love language of the emotionally constipated. Ava leaned back in her chair, chewing gum with perfect indifference. So, is liking someone now illegal, or are we making progress? The elders twitched. Something unexpected was happening. They were experiencing contradiction. Their translation orbs sputtered. One emitted a confused burst of binary. Error. Input incompatible. Emotion protocol not found. Then, simultaneously, all 6 elders began to glow. Not the calm blue of logic, not the crimson of rage, but an unclassified, vibrant fuchsia. The noise that followed was indescribable. It started as a hum, turned into a layered tone, then a wail, harmonized, echoing, resonant. Some would later call it a sonic rupture, others a meltdown. But galactic historians would record it as the first Velkrin Emo Concert. One elder collapsed forward and whispered, "She made us care." Another added, "Is this what feeling seen is?" A third, weeping oil, said, "I think I miss my old mentor. I never told him I was proud." They short-circuited their own translators. Literal sparks flew. Court was adjourned, possibly forever. In the days that followed the courtroom meltdown, or as Ava titled it, the first annual Velkrin Fieldfest, something remarkable happened. The unfeeling corps disbanded quietly, retreating to their bunkers to reflect in silence or work on themselves. The new emotional order drafted a charter. It was mostly emojis. No one objected. Ava, meanwhile, was given access to the High Command's core terminal, where the so-called E.M.P.A.T.H protocol was supposedly developed. She found a single file. It was her playlist, titled Sad Vibes and Snack Breaks, subtitled For Crying During Breakups, Deaths, or When You Drop a Burrito Face Down. That was it. No war algorithm. No psycho-empathic resonance code. Just rom-coms, breakup ballads, and the occasional golden retriever compilation. When she showed the Velkrin Council, they stared at the screen in complete silence. The Grand Marshal whispered, "This is not a weapon?" Ava shook her head. "Nah, it's just what I used to feel stuff when I forget how." The realization hit them harder than any shockwave cannon. Their minds had not been hacked. Their culture hadn't been infiltrated. They'd just been exposed to the raw, unfiltered mess of human vulnerability. And it spread, not because it was strategic, but because it was real. Vulnerability, it turned out, was contagious. And in the quiet that followed, one Velkrin said, "I would very much like to watch The Notebook again." And just like that, the war was over. Ava was promoted, not to general or commander, but something uniquely Velkrin, emotional admiral. Her job? To oversee the flow of interpersonal resonance across all sectors of the Reef Citadel. She agreed on one condition. She got Fridays off for mental health days. A week later, her face was carved into the side of a coral fortress. They tried their best, but without lips or eyebrows for reference, the final sculpture looked more like a concerned octopus in a hoodie. She didn't mind. She took selfies with it. They renamed her transport ship. What was once cargo vessel 14-9B became the Ambassador of Feeling. Its hull bore a new motto, glowing in soft bioluminescent script. Feelings, engage at will. Ava Morales, who only wanted a paid internship with housing, had accidentally taught an entire civilization how to feel. Not with tech, not with training, but with playlists, sarcasm, and snacks. Velkrin society never quite went back to normal. Rigid caste codes were quietly retired, replaced with soft glowing ID tags that read things like, currently processing regret, open to forgiveness, mildly crushed, but still functional. Commanders began holding weekly support circles. Attendance was mandatory. Snacks were optional but encouraged. Battle strategies now included emotional flank maneuvers, often involving long-distance poetry transmissions or surprise love ballads beamed into enemy strongholds. The once dreaded empath bombs became a staple of non-lethal warfare. They were just sad movies, deployed through encrypted signal. By the time Toy Story 3 hit the Andrelaxian front line, the enemy surrendered with handwritten letters of apology and a mixtape titled Songs I Didn't Know I Needed. As for Ava Morales, she left quietly. No parade, no medals, no dramatic last transmission. When the Velkrin asked why, she simply shrugged and said, "Once they start crying during Pixar, you know they'll be okay." No one knew where she went. Some say she took a consulting gig with a species of warlike robots struggling with complicated sibling dynamics. Others say she retired on a moon with good snacks and decent Wi-Fi. But her playlist still circulates in the Galactic Archive, now classified as Tier 1 Emotional Catalyst Protocol. And her legacy lives on, carved into coral, broadcast in beam form, whispered by commanders who once feared feeling anything at all. Final line, slow, dry, philosophical voiceover. In the end, she taught an entire race that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's just another weird human superpower, right next to sarcasm and snacks.